welcome back to Morning Express, and it's time for us to look at the dailies, and I'm going to be handing over to Zinzi Kibiku basically to introduce the guests, but we start off as usual with the standard. There's quite a lot awaiting cabinet changes, and we recently had a reshuffle, but it looks like there could be another coming, and well, Zinzi?
Well, Michael, thank you so much. Well, with us this morning, my well-enabled panel, I have Bernard Wakoli sitting closer to me. He is a political analyst. And on my far end, I have Mohammed Aden Farah, an advocate as well. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you in studio this Friday morning. So let's begin with the standard, as Michael has said. This awaiting cabinet changes, and I'd love to begin with you, Mohammed. Do you see another mini reshuffle happening, given right now cabinet secretaries amongst themselves are not singing the same song, are playing the blame game amongst each other, given the scandals from Ruaka to maize mill to illicit goods and so forth?
Indeed, Zinzi, thank you so much. What I do think is that the president had 4 agendas that he underlined. Now, for him to be successful to achieve those 4, agendas, all the cabinet secretaries must sing the same song, and must they have that collective responsibility, of which it's lacking right now. And the other factor that needs to be considered here is the big handshake that happened. I mean, the handshake team that was routine, that was coming up with the lineup, it's almost finalizing. It's almost finalizing the details. That's lawyer Paul Mwangi and the other guy. Now, ODM, since that big handshake, Amaraila's team, since the handshake, they must be accommodated into the government.
Right.
And for now, we're having the other wing of Jubilee, which is DDP Ruto and his team, who are on the dissenting side, of which probably I may think that they will be sidelined in the next appointment, of which, yeah, go on.
Go on.
Yeah, and well, the main underlying thing is the big force.
And you feel like probably this cabinet reshuffles, the fact that probably Uhuru's team hasn't settled in, will probably affect his legacy and the big 4? Indeed,
yeah, indeed. Well, the most important thing is Raila was brought in to revamp, the energy of the government. Now, for them to realize that one, they must be accommodated, and his team must be given positions. Now, for Uhuru's and of Uhuru, the main issue that brings up these changes or these cabinet reshuffles is that Uhuru's eyes are tied on his legacy, which is by the time he gets out of this point, we know that Uhuru did 1 and 2 things. Now, reflection back, the Solai Dam and all these scandals that are going on, he's a bitter man. He wants to have changes coming in, and he wants to have a team that does what is in his mind. Thank you. All
right, Wakoli, the aspect of this mini cabinet reshuffle probably might happen. We've already seen it happening already with Aden Mohammed and his counterpart. But do you think that this whole little drama and the blame game that we're seeing within cabinet secretaries is a result of their boss crafting down on graft?
Thank you very much, Zinzi, and welcome viewers. On this topic of reshuffling the cabinet, you know, the constitution envisaged a situation where we'll have professionals holding the positions of the cabinet. So it's not just a matter of reshuffling and bringing in new people or old people as we have always seen, but having people with the credibility, people who can perform, people who can deliver on the Big 4 agenda. And it will be surprising to see, maybe if the reshuffle will take place, to see the president removing some cabinet secretaries and bringing in all the politicians just to accommodate friends or cronies or people who supported him in achieving his presidency in 2017. But we want to see people who can deliver on his Big 4 agenda, because that is the most important thing. My colleague has talked about the cabinet accommodating Raila Odinga. I don't think if it's a must that we should have Raila Odinga's people into the cabinet for cabinet to be seen to be complete, because as we speak, ODM has refused to accept the fact that it has withdrawn from NASA. And having Raila's people included in the cabinet, then it will mean that automatically Raila is part of the Jubilee government, something that he has denied openly. And if at all ODM wants to serve as a watchdog of the government or as a NASA, part of the NASA coalition, then it should act in a way to suggest that it's not in bed or is not, working with the Jubilee in a manner that will promote or will enhance, will kill the opposition, So I don't see why we should have like people from Raila's side. And who are these people? Because we are in a country where people should get jobs on the grounds of qualifications and what they are supposed to perform, not because I've been seconded by a certain godfather somewhere.
And that's the thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that aspect, Wakoli, and even Mohammed. Sure. The aspect that if this cabinet reshuffle happens and the new appointment of parastatals, that it will all be based on politics and not generally is someone well qualified to handle and help Mr. Kenyatta move forward and succeed in the Big Four. What would you want to see if this new cabinet reshuffle happens to make sure that Kenyans deserve the services that they need and to make sure that Mr. Kenyatta also fulfills his Big Four agenda?
Well, Zinzi, I mean, we've never been fair to ourselves since independence. I mean, this country has been run by, let's say, political cronies of the big two guys.
Right.
Now, well, the last few days, people were talking about 3 families running or ruling the country since independence. And, well, the 3 of us here, the 4 of us here have got preferences among the 4 families or the 3 families that have been mentioned. Now, there is no harm in saying that I support so-and-so, and for that support I get, seconded or appointed to some positions. Well, obviously that doesn't remove the credential aspect, the qualification aspect of holding that position. Well, if you look at the previous appointments that we had somebody like Echesa, a class 8 or class 7 dropout, holding a position, a very key position like that.
Right.
Well, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the qualification. Probably he may have the experience, but the qualification is not there. So that doesn't mean that he's not aligned to a political position, a political party. Well, what we would like to have seen is that people being appointed or given positions based on their credentials, based on their experiences, and based on their abilities. But I don't foresee that one in this country.
Wakoli, who do you see going home?
I don't want to start speculations because I've gone through the dailies today and I haven't seen any name being suggested. But there are suggestions of having changes on in the ministries that have been dogged by this corruption, and one of them they are talking about Interior Ministry. Then we have Ministry of Education. Then we have like 4 ministries that the president thinks have been so much mentioned, adversely mentioned in corruption things. But let us not really crucify people on the basis of other people's responsibilities. Because as a minister, surely, this is a person who is at a level where, he does not even sign some of these documents.
All right.
So we need people at that ministry, people who are responsible to carry the cross. Because if we start crucifying people at the top, then we say, since there's so much corruption in Kenya, then the president should resign, something that he cannot. So as much as we want clean cabinet secretaries or clean government and a government that works in the same voice, a government that talks in the same voice, let us not be quick to judge and crucify innocent people.
All right, joining us on set is nominated Member of Parliament Godfrey Osotsi. It's good to have you here. And the aspect that we're leading with before we take a look at other stories is the the aspect of probably there could be another reshuffle within cabinet. One of the biggest fears are probably on Kenyans' mind is that what if Mr. Kenyatta appoints people out of favorism in terms of political liability, but then there's also the aspect of recycling leaders ahead of his Big Four agenda as he tries to fulfill that. Your thoughts on that?
Well, there could be need for cabinet changes because of the recent scenarios. First is there has been accusation on the issues of corruption. You have heard about the corruption in the sugar industry sector, where some key ministries were involved. You've heard about corruption on matters of land, for example, the Ruaraka land saga. So corruption is going to be a driving key in determination of cabinet changes. The other one is President Kenyatta's agenda on the Big Four. If you've realized, President Kenyatta is very keen to achieve the Big Four. And anything that appears not to be in sync with what he wants to do, I think he's very keen to reorganize his government to ensure that it's aligned to the achievement of the Big Four agenda.
Right.
The third is, of course, there has been a perception that probably the cabinet is not, the cabinet members are not really aligned to the collective responsibility that the cabinet is supposed to align to. You've seen some contradiction.
Why do you think the contradiction is there?
The contradiction is there because I don't think they're working as a team. You've seen what happened with Matiang'i and Adan Mohammed. One cabinet secretary is saying this, the other one is saying this. And the other factor is that some cabinet secretaries have been involved in active politics, very active politics. You've seen people like Echesa. They're on rampage all over every weekend, moving from one funeral to another, talking politics as if election is tomorrow. And President Kenyatta is very keen on delivery, service delivery, delivery of the Big Four agenda. So those are some of the things that the president may look into to reorganize his cabinet and have an efficient working cabinet.
Okay, Michael, what else has caught your eyes?
Yes, and as we wait for that cabinet reshuffle, of course, we know one of the things that the president would really like to fight is corruption. And on page 7, we have the EACC also, coming out guns blazing, and EACC sees his ex-governor over tender. This is former Nyandarua Governor Waithaka Mwangi, who was, seized yesterday, and this was with senior officials accused of failing to comply with procurement laws. And this particular procurement laws are to do with procurement design of a county water master plan at a cost of 23 million Kenyan shillings. We also have procurement of Olkalao sewage system estimated at a cost of 32 million shillings. Again, this is to do with leaders who have not followed the procurement, as it's supposed to be. So, Bernard, your thoughts on this? It looks like initially, when the government started cracking the whip on corruption, there were those who were saying that it's just, it's for the gallery. It's something to be seen. But it seems like they've been consistent.
Thank you, Mike. Before touching on the corruption issues, I want to mention two things on cabinet reshuffle. One, there's a thin line between political pronunciations and policy issues. So you might see a cabinet secretary going to a public event and giving statements that maybe borders on politics and issuing his policy issues with regard to his ministry. So you can't gag somebody on that aspect. Two, there's been already reshuffle. We have seen ministries or cabinet secretaries who were in ministries that were so much adversely mentioned in corruption being moved to other ministries. So I don't know how, for example, let's say Matiang'i was in education, with the Waraka scandal, then he's now Interior. Then we had the Minister of Agriculture being removed, and another minister taking over, another cabinet secretary. So there's this confusion on how who is going to take responsibility in corruption within those ministries. Are they the new cabinet secretaries or the former cabinet secretaries? On slaying the corruption's dragon, this is something that the president has taken seriously. And initially it started like, people laughed it off. People thought it's just a normal talk. But we have seen in recent times president holding on to it and trying to crush those people who have been mentioned. And we have seen governors, like the other day we saw Governor Sospito Jamong in court. And it was a very big, it sent a very big signal that governors are going to be targeted, especially the former governors, because devolved systems, although the constitution so it's necessary to have development move close to Mwananchi, move close to the people they are supposed to benefit. But for the 5 years, we have seen very little in terms of development within those counties, despite the fact that they get a lot of money from the exchequer. So the issue is about management. How these resources are managed at the county. And the governors have assumed this role of being semi-gods within those counties.
And speaking of management, Mohammed, I would like your thoughts on this specific story. What is really being brought out here is not necessarily just the issue of corruption and arrest charges, but the lack of procurement and going through the process. The system in itself, and a lot of critics have said this, as much as we go after the big fish, when it comes to corruption, the small fish also play a very big and critical role, be it the MCAs and now in this case, procurement officers. What would you like to see being done in regards to that?
Thank you, Zinzi. Well, if I put it this way, well, in terms of management, nothing happens without the knowledge of the governor. Nothing happens without the knowledge of the guy at the top. Now, corruption doesn't go into procurement only. It goes into employment itself. Now, if they don't clean their system straight from up to bottom, nothing can be, I mean, the anti-corruption slogan cannot be achieved. Now, if you look at several departments, as my colleague has said, now, the problem we have here is that, as my colleague has said, that we should have that collective responsibility within cabinet and even the guys at the top. I suppose personal responsibility should be the one attached to everybody's resume.
Right.
That if you head in a certain department and anything goes within that department, you should face the axe, and you should take responsibility of everything that happens there. Now, if that is assumed, I'm sure the governor or the guy at the top, or the person who is managing that department, will have a keen look into his workforce, straight from his desk to procurement side, to HR side, to any department. Now, in the absence of that one, corruption will be, in the absence of that one, corruption will be in our system, not only today, not only tomorrow, but in the years to come. So what I will say is that, the fight of corruption does not entirely goes into the procurement section. Right. It should go directly from the Public Service Board, directly to the HR departments, and even the governors himself.
Godfrey, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think corruption is a real problem in this country, but it is something we have allowed to thrive. Because if our institutions were working according to the law, we don't lack laws in this country. We have enough laws to deal with matters of corruption. What we don't have is that we have not allowed our institution to work. Because on matters of corruption, we have an institution that oversees procurement process. We have even the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, which is very elaborate on how procurement process will be done. But why are we still having all these challenges with the procurement? It's because our institutions are not working. If we can have EACC working properly, and we have institutions like DPP, which has begun demonstrating that they can deliver through Noldin, And we have institutions like the Ombudsman, which the other day we passed the names in Parliament, and I expressed my reservation about the names which were being taken for those positions. Because if you have someone who has been in politics and is partisan, and you are telling that person to head an institution like the Commission of Administrative Justice, which is supposed to even oversight State House, then you are not serious.
Right.
If you have a member who has been running political parties in this country, and that person has not delivered to the expectations of Kenyans, and you want that person to be the part of the ombudsman system, then we have a problem. So our institutions are not working because we have deliberately allowed them not to work. And therefore corruption will continue existing. So we want His Excellency, the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, to take cognizance of this fact that institutions have to work so that we deal with the matters of corruption.
All
and
right.
corruption, as you know, is
Yes.
one of the issues that are identified in the handshake.
Right.
And I hope the President will sustain the war he has begun on corruption.
And time will...
By first of all dealing with the institution. The people who occupy position in this institution should be people beyond reproach.
And time will tell, time will tell. But also on the Senate this morning, we're taking a look at the billions at stake with this raging war when it comes to sugar. We break down to you how it is that 6 billion in form of 1.3 million bags could be at stake if it's found with mercury. I'll allow you to grab a copy of your Standard newspaper this morning. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, Michael Gitonga will take us through the week in review and some of the biggest stories that made headlines this week, so stay with us.